Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Power of Youth, something which I no longer have, but I do hope to open up a little bit about that today. We all know that the future is in the hands of the youth. It always has been, and it always will be. Today, what we're hoping to do, look at some solutions on what we can do to help these young change makers make a difference, to empower young people to move forward and make change, and make the world a better place for everybody. So to start off, our first speaker, she needs very little introduction, but I'll give her an introduction anyway. She started about 10 years ago. She's been a change maker for about a decade. Started off with bye-bye plastic bags and has moved on and continued to grow. Now, she's the founder of Youthtopia. So if you'd put your hands together and welcome to the stage, Melati.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. It's
Excellent.
such a beautiful day here in Paris, and look at what is behind us. It's a good day. I'm feeling good.
Excellent news. So we'll get down to brass tacks straight away. You're quite famous. You're quite well known. People know who you are. But a lot of people say nowadays that youth activism and change makers, the reason they get into it is because of the fame. So what do you have to say about that?
For those of you that do not know who I am, because there are so many people still, I started when I was 12 years old in Bali together with my 10-year-old sister. And when we started, we had absolutely no idea what the word change maker or activist even meant. What we wanted to achieve was change in our island home of Bali. And I think that this is, that was the goal. The goal wasn't to be sitting here in Paris in front of all of you 10 years later or to make it onto CNN or Times. Those were just celebrations and moments that happened. But still, the persistence and the commitment of change in our home island was the core of what we do. And I think a lot of young people have that same source. Of course, it's not always the same for every young person, but I think that looking back, if you know why you're getting involved in the first place, and if your intention is pure, you can keep going for almost 10 years. That's what I've been doing. But if you do it for the wrong reasons, for Instagram followers, or to get into the right university, because you're starting from a place with the wrong intentions, you burn out so much faster. And so I think that, young people today, the ones who are doing it for the long run are doing it from a place of really pure intention, and that's the beauty of our generation as well. I do not think we do it from a place of politics or ego or greed, definitely not money-driven intentions, because let me tell you, there is no little money in change making. So I definitely think that young people lead by example and are driven by the challenges and the changes we want to see in our community that are currently not taking place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I work with a lot of young people. I'm also involved with Kids Against Plastic, and I often go to their meetings, and I see these wonderful young people sitting there, and not one of them is thinking about Instagram, not one of them. So when I hear these criticisms angled at youth activists, it makes me angry, because there's very little more pure than a child's intention of doing good.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also one thing that I want to say, for those of you that were in the room earlier, you saw Memory on the screen. Memory and I met through the filming of Bigger Than Us, which is a film that we showed here last night as well. It was a journey where I was 18 years old and I traveled the world to meet other young change makers. And Memory was in one, but I'm quoting Mary, where she says, us young people, none of us should be here. None of us should be skipping school. None of us need to be going and taking our governments to court. Why? Why are we here? And I think now we see young people getting involved at a younger and younger age, again, because we feel the frustration that change is happening too slowly. And we're fueled with the possibilities. There's so much hope in the movement and the generation that we're from.
It's absolutely true. You see kids as young as 7, 8, out there trying to make a difference. And I remember my daughter saying to me back on March 25th, "Daddy, can we go to the climate? Can we go to the march?" I said, yes, of course we can. And it wasn't because she didn't want to go to school, because the day before was my birthday and she refused to take the day off. So, you know, it was from that pure intention. But I'd like to know a little bit more about your journey. So from this inspirational 12-year-old, oh, you're such an inspiration, you're so brilliant, to full-time change maker. Like, tell us a bit about that journey.
So when I started at 12 years old, believe it or not, I was the kid in the back of the classroom, hoping the teacher would not pick me to present at the classroom presentation. But when I decided with my sister to do Bye Bye Plastic Bags, it was because I suddenly stepped into this feeling and this vision that was bigger than one person or one idea. And quickly, you know, yes, we were greeted at the very beginning. I mean, imagine 2 little girls from Bali, 10 and 12 years old, super strong and very serious about the vision. We were met with exactly that reaction of, oh, so cute, keep on going. But you know, that wasn't really what we were going for. So we kept coming up. We kept showing up. We were hosting meetings. We were drafting letters and petitions to our governments. And that journey really showed me as well that we have to walk our talk. And you know, who do we turn to as young people? If not now, when? If not us, who? And that was something I learned very early on. And today, being 21 and claiming myself to be a full-time change maker is really how I feel, for me as well, was the natural next step to keep on going and to help more young people feel like they can be change makers too.
You mentioned that, you know, if not us, who? And something that I find ridiculously inspirational is watching, you know, younger children learn from, you know, slightly older change makers. You know, I've mentioned my daughter before. I watch her when she comes out of the CAP Connects, and she's just like, Daddy this and Daddy that, and like all of these things that I would happily tell her, but it doesn't have the same connection coming from a 38-year-old bald bearded guy saying it as it does coming from somebody the same age or a bit older. So what can we get from peer-to-peer education, and what is peer-to-peer education?
Yeah, definitely. So the way I'm going to answer this question is by introducing you to my new project, Youthtopia. After nearly 10 years on the front lines with Bye Bye Plastic Bags, I spent more time in other students' classrooms than in my own classroom. And whenever I shared the story of Bye Bye Plastic Bags, I always got the same question, no matter where I was in the world, whether I was here in Paris at the high school, or in New York City, Tokyo, or in the Maluku Islands in Indonesia. And that number one question was always, how can I do what you do? How can I, as a young person, create change too? That's for me where I feel now that new passion grow, and what Youthtopia is all about. We've created a learning platform online for young people to learn how to create change, but from other young people, so the same age. And that is peer-to-peer learning. That's what we're trying to create through our over 100 programs on change making on the platform. And I think I saw that power because when I was standing on stage in front of students, they saw themselves in me. They sat a little bit closer on the edge of their seat and they said, if she can do it, I can do it too. And that's the power of peer-to-peer. They find some sort of, they can relate to it. And especially when we're talking about things like the climate crisis, it can feel so overwhelming, so lost, we don't know where to start. But if you can find something to hold on to, something that you can relate to, see someone your age taking action, suddenly you can feel like you're taking action too.
It's a great point, and something like kind of related to that. You know, a lot of people will see you and they'll be like, wow, so inspirational, she's brilliant, you know, she can do that. I want to make change, but I don't want to be on a stage in front of people, in front of the Eiffel Tower. I'm not comfortable in doing that. Like, so how can we make it more inclusive and find these other roles for people who don't want to be out there shouting and screaming, but they do want to make change?
For sure. Let me just say, public speaking is a skill that you can learn. It's something that I do every day. If you want, take our Youthtopia masterclass on public speaking. Just a little plug. But I recognize and appreciate your question as well, because there is not one way to be a change maker. You don't have to start your own thing. You don't have to be a founder. You don't have to join a protest if that's not how you would like to create change. Are you a researcher? Are you a writer? Do you play the guitar? Can you write a song and move people through music? Find whatever it is that you are good at and contribute those unique skills to the movement, because we need each and every one of us. No matter how old you are or where you come from, we all have a role to play. And one thing that we do at Youthtopia is try and bring all these different role models and these different change makers in one place. We have a circle of youth network. But I want to interact with you. How many of you know Greta Thunberg? Raise your hands. Up high so I can see them on stage. OK, keep your hands up if you know Mohammed Al-Junde. Keep your hands up if you know Reyhan Kamalova. Keep your hands up if you know, shout out to Amy Meek. She's in the audience. Meet her, get to know her. This is the point, though, right? That we all know a handful of change makers, but not enough. And that also limits our perception of how we view change making today. We have to celebrate each and every one of us who are creating change in the different ways so that all the young people around the world feel like they can see the role model that fits their passion and their skill set.
Exactly that. So yeah, it isn't just, the same person everybody's aiming to be. There is such a diverse range of change makers that do all need to be celebrated, and thanks to Youthtopia, it makes it an awful lot easier. So talking about these wonderful young people, I want to look at something that you talked about in one of your TED talks about youth washing. Something that is a massive issue. We all know about greenwashing. What is youth washing, and what can we do about it?
Yes, youth washing. This is something that I've seen develop from age 12 to 21, and even more now. So what youth washing is when companies or government officials invite young people for a one-time engagement. Come on stage and be our inspiration. Or come and do a photo opportunity. And after the applause and standing ovation and pictures gone viral, what next? It's left to a very superficial, surface-level interaction with young people. And it's also coming from a place where actually governments and corporates sometimes don't know where and how to engage with young people in a meaningful way. And that's something that we've taken upon us at Youthtopia to build a program for companies and for governments to be able to understand what exactly young people want and how to engage with them in a meaningful way. So that's something that we're really proud of spearheading and making sure that we're preventing youth washing, because when we think about sustainability, it has to be long-term, and it has to be sustainable, and also how we engage and interact with each other.
You just answered the next question immediately. That was brilliant. So I'm not particularly youthful. No matter how much my wife tells me I behave like a 12-year-old all the time, I am actually 38. I know I don't look it. It's okay, thank you. But what can we do, the older generation who we do care? Everybody here cares. That's why we're here. So what can we do to help support young people, to help get them a seat at the table?
I think there's a lot of different roles. First and foremost, you're creating the space here today, and I'm really excited to listen to the other speakers as well. But creating space for young people, listening to them, reach out. Get involved with the young people where you are locally from, and ask what is it that they need help with. Is it funding? Is it researching skills? Again, there are so many different ways that we can contribute, and it's about reaching out and making yourself known that you're a supporter to the youth groups around you. But actually, I'm curious, because you also spend a lot of time with students. What do you feel is the best way to create that space?
I think for me, so I work in the English language teaching environment. So what I try and do is engage people with the environment through English. I live in Spain, so the level of English is not 100%. And with English being the language of protest, English being the language of climate change, I know obviously it isn't. I find that that's a great kind of way to link students, to help empower them and show them, look, you can find your voice. You can do it in your own language. Please do it in your own language. That's absolutely vital. You need to spread the word to people as well. But also you can get out there and you can do it in English as well, and you can be seen and you can be heard, and you can make your voice heard in that way.
Yeah, I think language is such a powerful tool as well. Shout out to Sofia Kiani. If you haven't heard of her, she's an incredible change maker, also part of Youthtopia. She spoke yesterday on stage here at ChangeNOW and talked about exactly, language. We have to make it accessible. Not everybody speaks English, for example. Not everybody speaks the 6 recognized languages of the United Nations. So how do we make that accessible? And again, creating that space, engaging in all the different localized solutions and localized approaches are really important.
I'm really glad you talk about this localized solution. So what I often do with my students and also the teachers that I work with, because education has a huge role in change making. And it's all about finding that passion, finding that one thing. Because you mentioned Greta, and people look and think, I want to do that. But we can't all do that. So this idea of finding a passion and finding that local solution. So what would you do what would you suggest somebody do if they want to start in change making?
Ooh, there's so many ways and so many things that I could share. I think the first tip of advice that I always try and give to young people who want to start their journey as a change maker is first, be clear on the type of change you want to achieve. And try and think really strongly, what is that clear vision? What is the end goal that you want to achieve? What's the world that you want to live in? Imagine if we just ended our first organization as bye-bye all single-use plastic. Well, we'd be on a very long journey still today. But we were specific in the type of change we wanted to achieve. Bye-bye plastic bags. And the clearer you are with your end goal, the easier it is to build momentum, the easier it is to convince people and bring them on board to take that first step towards change. So tip number 1, get clear on the type of change you want to achieve. Tip number 2, no matter how good of a leader you think you are or how good your idea is, you cannot do it on your own. You need to have a team around you. How do you build a team? There's a lot longer, of course, available on Youthtopia, but for today, look to your peers, your best friends. I started the first campaign with my sister, and together we started building a team of other young people from different school networks, our friends, new friends that we met from other schools, but build your team. And tip number 3, have fun. I feel like the audience was like, okay, what's tip number 3? Have fun. It's that simple. Sometimes I feel like we forget to talk about having fun because sometimes when I'm on stage, it's such a serious conversation, but I love the audience at ChangeNOW because we see that through creativity and through inviting narratives, we're able to excite and invite everybody to take action. So make sure that you're serious about change, but you're holding on to the creativity and the unique skill sets that your generation, our generation, has.
I think that's so important, that idea of having fun and not letting the eco-anxiety take over. I know that Clover Hogan's speaking about it currently on a different stage, so thanks for coming here. But that idea of turning this anxiety into agency is something I see a lot. Again, I mentioned the Connect again, the CAP Connect. There's a young lady called Inaya, and she's 12, and everybody always says, what do you do about this anxiety? And she says, I turn it to action. So that idea of taking it and having fun with it and growing with it is so important. Now, I do have another question. Bye-bye plastic bags. Brilliant. So Bali, bye-bye plastic bags. Rwanda, bye-bye plastic bags. The UK, hello plastic bags. They're still there. What can we do to, release this grip? Obviously supermarket chains make an enormous amount of money out of plastic bags. It's a huge business now. They don't say to you, would you like to buy a plastic bag? They say, do you need a plastic bag or do you want a plastic bag? So what can we do to say bye-bye to plastic bags in other places?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the timer. I have like 2 minutes to explain this. So in short, and again, reach out to Amy Meek, especially in the UK, Kids Against Plastic. But from my experience, this question can be answered in 2 parts. Of course, the individual action, and secondly, the systemic changes. I think there's so much power in asking the question in the first place. In Bali, we did not ever have that choice of, hey, do you want a plastic bag? I think individually, that question already makes you think, hang on a second, do I really want a plastic bag? So there's a lot of psychological guilt already from asking the question in the first place, that you are individually reminded of the power you have to say no and to bring your own bag. But we cannot rest the responsibility only on the individuals. So I think the systemic change is really important, and it's about building momentum, showing the numbers that people are ready for change, and convincing large supermarket chains or government, local government, that this is something that is wanted and needed. So I think it's all about the momentum. We were really lucky in Bali that, you know, it wasn't just bye-bye plastic bags. There were so many like-minded organizations. Every year we had an event where we pulled together over 12,000 people coming in one day to clean up locally where they are from, and that momentum showed governments that they cannot say people are not ready anymore. We are, here we are, and we want change.
That is absolutely incredible. Now, we do have 1 minute left, okay? So I'm going to ask you one more question, but you might have to speak really, really fast.
Okay.
Okay. Youthtopia. How did that come to you? How did you have that idea? Like, what was the inspiration behind that?
Oh, okay, so here's my rapping voice. Youthtopia came from that question that I kept getting of how can I do what you do? But on a more personal level, I wish I had a platform like Youthtopia when I was 12 years old. I mean, how cool would it have been when I was 12 to just pick up the phone and call Mohammed or call Mary or call Memory and say, hey, what do you think about this campaign? And learn from them about how to keep going and how to create change. So Youthtopia is from 21-year-old building it for 12-year-old Melati and all the other 12-year-olds out in the world.
That was amazing. You got 16 seconds left. How did she do it? That was absolutely incredible. That is an elevator pitch for you guys. So if you're looking for an elevator pitch, that was it. Thank you so much, Melati. You have been amazing. You are amazing. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, everybody. And I'm really looking forward to the next speakers.
Okay, so we do have the panel coming up now. I was expecting a jingle, but I imagine it will come up very shortly. So we have two wonderful speakers coming up to talk about youth and empowering youth now. The first one is Julia Bethe. I apologize if my pronunciation is bad. She's a climate and nature nexus specialist. She's an expert in nature-based solutions in the private section's action on nature, agriculture and international environment governance and policy. Besides her active involvement in Youth for Nature, she works as a stakeholder engagement assistant officer for the European Biodiversity Partnership. And we also have Cristina García. I'm a bit more confident with my Spanish pronunciation there. She has a volunteer role as the PO of events for the Sustainable Development Solution Network. That's a mouthful, I'll tell you that. And that's an accelerator of youth engagement, empowering young people to drive sustainable solutions, regardless of what country, stage of life, level of knowledge, or the problem they're trying to solve. So thank you very much. Please take a seat, and this is for you. This is for you. I don't think it's wet, so you shouldn't be electrocuted. So I'm going to start with you, Anna, as you're closest. I love your jacket, firstly.
Thank you.
What does your role entail at SDSN?
Oh, thank you very much, Harry. Bonjour à tous. Je m'appelle Anna. I will speak in English. Well, first of all, I would like to mention that I'm acting right now as in my personal capacity, and my views represent SDSN Youth and not the IDB group. So, as a volunteer for SDSN Youth, I would like first to mention, to say, what is SDSN Youth? So, as you mentioned, Harry, is a Sustainable Development Solutions Network youth initiative. And it's one of the world's biggest networks, mobilizing youth to create urban solutions to the world's challenging problems. And we do so by mobilizing, connecting young people with the resources and the opportunities that they need to implement their actions. So as part of SDSN Youth and in a program that is called Local Pathways Fellowship, my role is to help you to visualize their work in the most high-level events, forums, meetings, so that they and their projects and their ideas and their creativity is visible. And have the visibility they deserve. Because, let's face it, our high-level meetings does not have the youth perspective.
Exactly that, yeah. Thank you very much. Julia, what's your role in Youth for Nature?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me, and very happy to be here in my hometown, Paris. So I'm Julia. I'm also working on personal capacity at Youth for Nature. I joined Youth for Nature almost 2 years ago now, after my master's. And there I'm leading the policy task force, and I'm a global ambassador. And I used to coordinate the global first youth statement on nature-based solutions that was launched at the COP26 for decision makers. And Youth for Nature, for those who don't know, is a non-for-profit, fully youth-led organization that is based in Canada and is working to empower young people to take action on nature and on climate change. We work a lot on the policy at the advocacy side, and also on the ground level, emphasizing story of young people and encouraging them to tell their story in terms of capacity building and story.
Okay, so how do you do that exactly?
Well, actually, I'm sitting behind my computer and I'm working. Also, we were in lockdown here in Paris, so it was super fun to finally meet young people the same age as I am, the same active as I am, and wanting to change things through the internet and from my bedroom. So we meet once a week, daily, or once a month. We meet, we discuss what we want to do, what we want to achieve, how also, and when, and what do we want, basically. And also, how do we share what we know and share this with other young people and make sure that we use our privilege as, I don't know, I'm a white French person, and I am able to not be paid for a month because I'm living in my parents' house, so I don't need to have a job to live. So I can dedicate some time to help other young people that don't have this privilege to be able to be heard. Also, I'm speaking very well English, so I can help other French people that don't, that can have their voices heard. So that's how I'm trying to do that.
I think recognizing privilege is like one of the big first steps in that. So, and what do you do to help young people at SDSN Youth?
Well, I look for new partnerships as well, and look for social events where they can visualize their projects and their ideas and their creativity. And for example, before the pandemic, we get to have some fellows, one of the local Pathways Fellowship, to describe their ideas and their projects at the World Urban Forum in Kuala Lumpur. So it was such a big event for them, and they have this exposure. Then after the pandemic, as we know, in-person meetings had to be stopped. But we managed to have virtual opportunities for them to also, for our cohorts or alumni that have their sustainable projects. So, but now that we are reconvening in person meetings, hopefully for the future, I will continue looking for opportunities for them.
Amazing. Now, climate action it's such a huge umbrella. We talk about climate action. There is the SDG climate action. It's a massive thing. And when you bring this upon young people and you say, the climate emergency, you need to do something. This is your future. Do something. We saw with Melati before talking about looking for a specific goal, and then it grew from there. So Julia, what can we do to help people kind of find that passion?
I feel like you need to find what is frustrating you. What I do usually is I think of myself when I was younger and what was super frustrating. So first it was adult people saying that you don't have the right to be angry, you're too young to understand. no, I'm not. I do understand. I have the right to be angry. I have the right to be frustrated. I told you earlier today, but 50 years ago, there was the Meadows report was launched. It was 50 years ago. In 50 years, I could live twice. Young people were already there in 72, having the same speeches that we have today. And it's not normal that things haven't changed and haven't been getting worse. We have more science, more knowledge, and still we hear young people taking our personal time to do this. I love what I'm doing, honestly. I love being here, meeting young people, passionate, also older people as passionate. But I would have loved to not have this passion. I would have been very glad to have the passion and work as a history teacher, for instance. I would love that, but I feel like there are other things to be useful in life and to help other people. And it's unfair that young people are dying, minorities are dying because of what is happening. And it's not only a climate emergency, but it's a human emergency, a nature emergency as well. So truly, finding your passion is just trying to speak how frustrated you are and how you want to see things to change. And when you do that, also you realize that you're not alone. So many people has the same feelings. So many people wants to reach the same goals, sometimes without taking the same routes. But we all want to achieve the same thing. So that's really important. And you also realize that people from corporates or people from as decision makers or who has power sometimes agree with you, but they don't realize that they can do things or that it's achievable and easily achievable. And if you do nothing, it's going to be worse and even less money, even less health, and all the stuff like that.
I really love what you said there about it's been around forever, because it has. Like, it's spoken about more now, but I remember at school, it wasn't that long ago, but I remember at school, it started out and we were talking about the greenhouse effect, and we were talking about global warming, and then suddenly, global warming sounded a bit dangerous, so it turned into climate change. And finally now, people are speaking about a climate emergency and a climate crisis, whereas, 30 years ago, when I was at school, okay, it was quite a long time, it was still there. There was still climate change was happening, and it was spoken about, but it's only now that it's kind of being screamed about, and I agree, it's incredibly frustrating. But I'm going to go back to you with the previous question about how can we help people find their passion.
Well, I share what you said about find what makes you angry, what makes you happy. But I would like to take some steps back and just to say that young people, and now in this social media world that we live in, feel pressure that they need to have their passion right now. And that's not true. People can find their passion in their 30s, in their 40s, 50s, and it's okay. It's okay not to be pressured that you need to have your whole journey right now visualized. So it's about try different things, explore new possibilities, new jobs, change jobs, and try different hobbies, flavors. I don't know. Also, it's about learning about your failures, because people may think that, or young people may think that, okay, maybe I'm not good in this, I'm a failure, or I cannot do this. You can do whatever you want. It can sound cliche, but it's the reality. We can do whatever we want. And there's some good examples that I have in my mind that have had very successful people that when they were young had their setbacks. One example that I love to share is Michael Jordan. Well, Michael Jordan was not good when he was young, doing basketball. But he practiced and practiced and practiced in improving in what he wanted to do. And I have a good quote, and I'm sorry if I read it, but it's very good. That's it from him. That says, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I fell over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." So this is very inspirational for me, and what I want to share with young people is that be inspired by others, and try, and don't be afraid to fail.
That like resonates with me massively. That idea of, you know, you don't have to have your passion now. You know, I didn't find my passion until not that long ago. So yeah, that like really resonates in that idea of not giving up, just keeping on going and keeping on trying, because if you don't make mistakes, you're not going to learn anything. You know, if you succeed with everything in your life, if you have everything handed to you, then life's just going to be too easy and you won't be able to face those challenges. You won't be able to grow. So yeah, I think I probably missed even more than 9,000 shots, but yeah.
Yes, I wanted to emphasize what you said. It's so true that you don't have to feel that pressure of finding your passion or just your way of life. And also, what I would advise is just explore and try things. And what I discovered when I started my journey at Youth for Nature is, in the end, just there go, just there take your right place, just there take what is rightfully yours and sit at a table in the decision makers. It feels from the outside that it's so untouchable that you don't have the right to be here, but in fact you have. They just will not let you know that you have that right because it's not good for them. But in the end, go there, explore, just find your way and just try to find how you can reach the goals that you have set up first. So that is what I discovered for the last 2 years. Is just go, and some people will welcome you very warmly, some won't, but just go and there.
But how do we do that though? So you know, we were talking before about youth washing and this idea. How do we get young people their seat at the table? How do we get young people's voices heard by the important decision makers, the ones who have the money, who have the power? What can we do to get them listened to? Anna.
Oh, thank you, Harry. It's a very important question, and we at SDS and Youth, we believe that youth is not only the future, it's the present for our cities, for our countries, and we think that they need to have a seat in the room where everything happens. That is to say that in the high-level important meetings where all the politicians meet and discuss, and when they decide our paramount decisions for our challenges. And so, because let's face it, like it's a common mistake to think that young people need to be seated at the table, that they need to be like experts in professionals, experts, leaders, experts in a certain field to address challenges. They have what it takes. And it's important that they have this seat at the table, because in order to create sustainable cities and countries, we need to have an intersectional perspective. That means that all the diverse groups, women, Afro-descendant, migrants, LGBTQ community, these people with disabilities have their seat at the table and decide how they want their cities to be. So that's what I need to do.
Amazing, amazing. And what do you think, Julia? How can we get that seat at the table? We know. How can we get them that seat at the table?
Well, I fully agree with you, Anna. Having one youth and say, oh, I have a youth at my table, it's enough. No, young people are such a diverse group. We are just a group age, so we are as diverse as the word is. We have native people, we have minorities, so-called minorities, LGBTQI, we have black people. All the so-called minorities are also youth are minorities. So it's super important that it's not always the same type of youth that are invited at the table. It's not because one young person is super good for the media that they have a right to sit at this table. No, and I've witnessed it, and I love that some young people at COP26 were invited because of their privilege to some tables, and they said, okay, I am invited, I will go, but I will bring with me other young people, the women, indigenous people. and they say, okay, you want me to speak? No, I will stand up and make the other person have that seat. So they use their privilege to give that seat, and I feel like it's one of the greatest way to achieve. They will not give us for free our seat, so we'll take it, grab it, and make it as we wish it to be, which is having our voices, and voices with an S, heard.
That is, it's such a good point you make about that privilege, because when we look at the big change makers, you know, on the screens, we see a very similar pattern. You know, a lot of white middle-class people are being seen as like, that's youth. You know, there's youth. All of these young people, they are the ones with the voice. But I know at SDSN Youth, it's a bit different to that, isn't it? It's not just, you know, the white voice that's heard. What you're doing there is, it's a bit different. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, actually, yes. At SDSN Youth, we have in the local pathways fellowship, especially that it's my role here. It's a program where we empower you to mobilize SDG 11 and localize their actions into the cities. So, but one thing that it's always very interesting for us in the team to see is that most of our applications come from the global south. So people from Pakistan, India, China, Africa, you know, they are the ones who apply, and mostly women. So it's very interesting to see how they are eager and very motivated and to inspire to share to the world what they can do. So yeah, that's for us. It's very it's telling where the world is moving forward. So to them and to the youth and to women to have their voices heard.
Because it is obviously that these regions that are seeing this, you know, they've been climate change affected for years now. Obviously now we're seeing it more in the global north. For example, today in my hometown, my adopted hometown, Seville, it's 41 degrees. You know, it's 41 degrees in May. Like, it's absolutely unheard of. But you know, it's been years in India where they've been suffering from these like climate-affected things. So I think it's brilliant what you're doing, giving them the opportunity to be heard, and also giving them empowering them to make those decisions, to make those changes. And I'd like to know what strategies for youth empowerment do you think work? I'll send that over to Julia first, so you can have a moment to breathe. What strategies work with youth empowerment?
That's a very good question. I feel like there are not one strategy. Many ways could work, depending on the situation, depending on the culture, depending on who you're talking to. I like the thing that I like calling out people and challenging, because sometimes I've talked to decision makers and people in power and say, we like that you're challenging us, so we do. And sometimes we feel like we have only 8 years to act until 2030. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to take people out of the box and out of the discussions. So it feels a bit weird, but having also corporates at the table and discuss, but having only the same balance in voice than everyone else could be also a great strategy to achieve this. So I don't know how to answer, because it really depends. You see, we all have different strategies. We all have different organizations. We're all working differently, having different studies, working differently, speaking different languages. So, and we have different way of doing. And also, I realized that working with the American network of people and also the French network of people, they don't have the same narrative and not the same types of stories are talking to them and are like wanting them to do things. So also we need to adapt to the audience and try to find the ways that are working the best.
I mean, as a teacher, like, so I see this on a very kind of, on a micro level. Like, in the classroom, not everybody learns in the same way. You know, you have to listen to each and every individual student to know how they need to learn. And I feel for youth empowerment, it's very much the same. You know, there is no, it's not a scarf, youth empowerment. It's not one size fits all. You know, we need to find a way of adapting it to each and every individual, like by looking at the different ways of looking at it. What do you think, Hannah?
The strategies for empowerment?
Exactly, okay. The strategies for empowerment.
Well, first, I resonate with what you said. And first, we need to look at the different dimensions that we can help youth, we can empower youth. There's different dimensions, like we can empower them like economically, socially, with connecting them with networks, culturally by visualizing their culture and their origin. And but also, through all this, through taking this dimension, we can take like strategies in terms of promoting what they do in economic, social, and cultural, arenas, and also facilitating the implementation of their programs. And we can do that, like in SDS and Youth, for example, we have different programs that we use to, we have to empower youth. And one of them, for example, is the Youth Solutions Program that focuses on SDG entrepreneurship. We educate people, young people get educated in Sustainable Development Goals in the 2030 agenda. And they help them to visualize their entrepreneur, their companies or their startup. We also have the SDG Students Program, which equips a student with the knowledge to become SDG professionals. And lastly, as I already mentioned, Local Pathways Fellowship, where we capitalize their creativity, their passion, and ultimately to solve the urban problems that they have within their cities.
Fantastic. Now, we've only got 50 seconds left, so I'm going to pass over this quick question to Julia. What would you say, if you could say one thing to a young person who's hoping to get involved with the climate emergency, what would be your kind of call to action for them?
I would say use the tools that you have, and first, our generation is lucky enough to have the internet, and it's a really great thing, so look for other persons, look for any innovations or NGOs that may be around you or even outside of your countries that you could meet with. Amazing.
You've got 12 seconds if you want to say the same.
Well, first, just try. Also, a very good advice that I learned very late in my life is find a mentor, somebody that can guide can help you and can guide you with network and ideas and empower your perspectives, and don't be afraid to fail.
Muchísimas gracias.
And fund youth.
Merci.
You have to fund youth also, because we don't have money and we are all doing this.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Excellent. It's probably going to fall, you know. That's the equivalent of a mic drop. Finally today, we have a young gentleman from Bristol, even taller than me, so you might not be able to see the Eiffel Tower in a minute when he gets up here, so get your photos now. So to close the session on the power of youth, I'm going to be talking to Matty Scarratt-Jones. He's a student from Bristol, as I mentioned. He's part of the Avon Schools Eco Network. He's a leader in his school's Eco Club, and he recently went to, I'm not sure if you've heard of COP26. He was there, like, fairly famous thing. So please put your hands together, give a very warm welcome to Matty. How you doing, mate? Did it? Mic drop. So we've heard from some amazing, inspirational young people. I know when I spoke to you before when we had our link-up call, Matty said to me, "Yeah, I got into this quite late, you know." I was like, "Quite late?" He's only 17. I know he looks like, he looks, but so when he was like sort of 14, 15, he got into this. But we'll get to this. I got into this quite late, and there's me thinking, you got into this late? Oh, I think I'm a bit behind here. So, Matty, when did your passion start?
So if I had to put an age, I'd say about 15, definitely. And I think looking back, it's definitely recent compared to Melati 12, and I've 3-4 years ahead of me with that one. And I think it proper flourished during lockdown. And I was fortunate enough to be invited to join the Avon Schools Eco Network, their first ever meeting, and I just said yes. And from there, I've just said yes to every opportunity that's come my way, because I've got this youth and all this energy, and it's like, don't waste it. And all these amazing things, and you just got to say yes to all of them. And that's sort of my philosophy when it comes to it.
That is amazing. So we mentioned before about inspiration. You know, there are a lot of young people. Can you put your finger on who is your primary inspiration? Who was it that made you think, I want to do that?
So I'd have to put that down to a gentleman called Tom Walmsley, who actually he knows Clover Hogan quite well, but he used to do a bit of environmental education at my school, and he actually helped set up the Avon Schools Eco Network, and he was almost like a beacon of light at my school, and this really friendly. He'd bring ducks out into the playground, have a bike with a smoothie on it, and he'd make it fun and enjoyable, and try to get as many people involved in it as possible, which is the smiles you'd see him put on children's faces, which is incredible. And he was this figurehead, and he inspired me, as with many others in my school, to get involved and get interested in sustainable education and sustainability as a whole, and all the different areas that it embraces. And he was really amazing. And I've got to thank my parents and Isabel here as well. We're coming out to I've dragged you out to Paris, and it's such a
so cruel of you. How could you do such a thing?
Horrible for that, but I wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you a lot. I've just had so many people in my life, and every one of them's taken the time to sort of almost stop, look, listen, and to what I have to say, and also to what I have to listen to them as well, and learn from as many people and gain as many life perspectives as possible. Otherwise, everything I'm saying you can just ignore.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned about education, something I'm incredibly passionate about. Now, I think education's pretty broken. You know, you're coming to the end of your schooling, your compulsory schooling. I imagine you'll continue afterwards. You don't have to, but so I didn't tell him that. I didn't say that. His mum and dad are here. You do have to if they take no. Education it's broken. It needs a dramatic reform. But it always comes from, number one, politicians, and then they've got their expert advisors who are ex-head teachers or Sir, whoever it is that got his knighthood because of his service to education 40 years ago. So all of this wonderful advice comes in about that we need to learn grammar in class and we need to learn all these different things. What do you think we need to learn? What would you like to be taught?
What we can do and what's out there at the moment, because I feel like I don't know a lot about a lot of subjects to do with sustainability and a lot of topics related to it. It's barely touched on in the English education system, like very briefly in geography and chemistry. Apart from that, very little. I mean, recently, 2-3 weeks ago, is it natural history, I believe, has been announced as a GCSE subject, but once again, it's all optional. And there's none of that sort of, it should be woven like a golden thread through the curriculum in every lesson that it can be. And unfortunately it's not, which there's a real gap there, I feel.
That's exactly how I feel with, like, as an English teacher, you're lucky enough to teach a variety of subjects within the language, English as a foreign language teacher. So weaving climate change into every single class is super simple. You know, it's literally 2 minutes at the end of class to get students to think critically, to look at what we've learned that day and say, how does what we've learned affect the planet? Spend 2 minutes thinking about it. So if you've just done a lesson on sport, if you've just done a lesson on, I don't know, the home. You can stop and think, how are these things that we've learned connected to the planet, and what can we do to kind of make a change? So that is a super important thing. And I personally don't think it needs to be, you know, there is a subject about climate change, so you're going to go to that subject and you're going to sit there and you're going to learn it. Here's the book, read all of that, and there's an exam about climate change. I don't think that's going to work.
People won't be interested. People will not be interested. And whereas if you're doing it almost not by stealth, but weaving it into the curriculum, people will just, oh, actually, yeah, I'm quite interested in this. It's not like they're being force-fed it. It's, yeah, okay, so how does this affect this? And as you say, getting people to think critically about what their day-to-day learning how that will affect the world and the future of it.
I mean, even things like history. You know, you talk about history, and there's, you know, in the UK, obviously, you know, dig for victory.
Yeah.
Oh, Britain, yes, we dug for victory. We were amazing.
Plucky.
Yes, plucky British. But how has that not been like focused on and looked at as, you know, dig for the planet? You know, why don't you then say, well, if back then everybody could go into their back garden, they could make a little allotment, and they could grow food to sustain themselves, how has that not become like a focus of history lessons, to learn from history, to look at that and say, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you start an allotment in your garden rather than your perfectly manicured lawn and your lovely flower beds, which, don't get me wrong, I love flower beds. I have a little one myself. But I also grow pumpkins. You know, I also grow other things. So I don't know, do you think that sort of thing would you find that interesting as a student?
Yeah, I mean, I loved history when I was at school, and I found it fascinating learning about how the world used to work in that. And I'm sure in 50 years' time, they'll be learning about, well, they might even be learning about change now. That might be a case study. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? We're living history. But the 50 years' time to start learning about it is far too late. And if tomorrow the government suddenly announced, yes, we're mandatory part of the history curriculum, you're going to learn about how the 80s and 90s affected climate change. Perfect. That's a step in the right direction. But it's a step in the right direction of what is ultimately a marathon. And to getting it involved in every subject, it will be difficult to get every school on board with it. But it is possible, as you say.
The problem I find is like it's curricular. So teachers aren't given the tools to go in there and help their students. You know, I find I train a lot of teachers to have a greener mindset and to bring that into their classroom. But teachers aren't aware of it. And you know, rarely will a teacher walk into a classroom if they don't think they know it all, which is quite a sad thing. It's something I learned from my politics teacher, that, you know, if I didn't know something, I'd ask my students, because quite often your students know things that you don't. So stopping and actually listening to them is a really important way to adapt. But yes, teachers don't feel equipped. So again, the government need to help provide that kind of help. But away from that, you're an inspirational young man. I know we shouldn't just be talking about you being an inspirational young man, but I want to know what you can do to help inspire the younger kids in like your school, in your area, because from what I've seen, young people don't react particularly well to me and suggesting certain things, but they do react particularly well to people like Melati, to people like Amy, to people like Clover, to people like you. So what can you do within your school network?
Be that figurehead. Be that person that people go, I look up to them, and guide them and help them be inquisitive, help them learn all new things and have a laugh. As Melati said, have fun. And our eco clubs, sometimes they're a complete shambles, but we're having fun and we're learning and we're getting stuff done, all while having a laugh. And it's just an incredible place to be. And I remember you said in our briefing Zooms, like, you see a tall 6'6" bloke walking across the playground, they're probably going to think he's a teacher, but no, he's a student, he's one of us. And be that person that they can go, yeah, I want to do what he's done, because if one person does it, then another one will do it, and it will snowball, and then eventually you'll have that army to fight for what you believe in, and to fight for your values that you hold dear to your heart. And that is what I think is important, to be that person. If you've got no one in that school, be it. If you've got no one in your company, be the person that will make that change. Because, yeah, that is what is going to make the change, is having someone to kick it off to start with.
That is brilliant. That is absolutely fantastic. Now, you mentioned briefly your eco club. Now, if you go to Spain and you say eco club, like the people will look at you like you're some kind of weirdo. Like, it has not reached Spain yet. The awareness hasn't reached Spain yet. And I go and I do workshops. I go to schools and we talk about it. And I always say, so guys, what can we do to fight climate change? And their answer is, I recycle. And it's like, yeah. What else do you do to fight climate change? I recycle. It's like, okay, brilliant. So that kind of message of recycling is the answer. It's something that we need to fight against. So I'd like to know, what do you do in your eco clubs?
So once again, that
inspire me, please.
Well, that is the thing. That is one of the things that is taught to us from a young age. Recycling, yeah, recycling is going to save the world, and that only. Yeah, that's not the truth, is it, though? It's
a great way into it. Now, I have a friend who runs pick-up house, and he says it in a very strange way, but he says, recycling and litter picking are a gateway drug to environmentalism. So it's a great way of getting hooked on environmentalism, but it isn't the answer.
Yeah.
So what else can you do in your eco club?
So we host amazing things like, for example, Bright Green Week. So we do off-grid classrooms for the week. Actually, in our school, we do actually have an off-grid classroom, which is completely, we believe it was the first of its kind within a school in the country as of its creation. And it was this beautiful, it was in the basement, actually, and we had solar panels. We got kids to decorate and get really involved and hands-on with it. We have outdoor classrooms. We have forest schools. We have all these things that try to get kids involved with nature. And our eco club as well, we go out, we'll do little protests on the drive, we'll sit there with signs and placards, and we try and make it look appealing to people, not like we're forcing it down your throats, which often people perceive youth activists to be, and that's not the case. We're not like that. We're just a normal bunch of people sitting down and trying to go for I believe we're going for our 5th green flag. Consecutive Green Flag Award, and as a school, so we're sitting down, we're discussing, right, what can we do to get over that 100-point mark, and it's just a great environment to be in. It's an echo chamber of like-minded individuals, which just makes it such a beautiful place to be in. And if we can then translate it to others to go, you want to get involved with this too, and you want to have the same fun that we're having and do all of this, that's when that snowball effect will come into play and go, well, my best mate's doing it, well, I'm going to do it as well because I want to be with him, and oh, suddenly I'm learning about this, this, and this. Oh my God, this is amazing. And it's, it's truly incredible, and I think every school should have, if they can and have the facilities to do so, have their own sustainability or their own eco club, because it will really change the mindsets of people until we can have that woven into the curriculum.
I do love that kind of that amplifying snowball effect idea that you have. So, you go there and you start the eco club that then goes out round to the school, and then another school will see it and be like, hang on a minute, they're doing that. So then you've got your whole Avon network, and everybody's involved in it, and it grows. And I know that you're in Bristol, which is a very progressive city, so that change is easier to make there. But it's wonderful to see, and it's fantastic to be able to connect with people like you in a situation like this. Well, with that behind us, it's not the worst thing in the world to look back at. So, there it is. There's Matty in construction. So Matty, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've got so much more to talk about, so we will talk about it. Not now, because we've only got 16 seconds, but hopefully you'll come on Renewable English and you'll have a chat and you can share your story with our learners across the world.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matty. It's been an absolute pleasure.